thrill me.
I'm gonna name you Kodo. You get a name too, Podo.
I got good news and bad news, girls. The good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
You too? You got a boner too? Blue Steel.
Welcome, everybody, to another installment of the Unkind Rewind. This week we'll be joined by Victoria Walsh. We'll get to her eventually, but as usual, I'm Josh Dugan. I'm joined by my co-host, Sean McGrath. How are things, Sean?
Hell yeah. Victoria Walsh with a movie neither of us saw coming. But nobody could have predicted.
No. Wild movie.
I'm good. I'm going to go see for the first time in, like an Unkind Rewind amount of years, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon tomorrow.
Nice.
Playing over at the Metrograph here in New York. One of the seminal, I guess you could say, martial arts movies of the genre.
Yeah.
One of the bigger box office ones. Certainly one that made headway in the U.S. God, could it have? No, it didn't get a Best Picture nomination, did it?
It did.
It did? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So...
What, 2001, I think?
Yeah, right around there. But yeah, see if that holds up. I remember the special effects being great.
It lost to Gladiator. It was nominated against Traffic, Aaron Brockovich, and Chocolat.
So I'm assuming, though, that it won Best Foreign Language Film.
I'm almost positive it did.
Yeah. It didn't get the double dip. We know the double dip didn't happen until Parasite.
It beat Amores Perros, Divided We Fall, Everybody's Famous, and The Taste of Others.
I know one of those for sure.
Yep. Same.
Yeah. I couldn't even tell you the countries.
They routinely just whiff on foreign language nominations.
Yeah.
Like, it's three that are almost instantaneously forgotten. And there are other foreign language films that should have been nominated almost every one of these years and ended up not being. So,
speaking of foreign language films, I did finally make it to Jean Dielman.
It's supposed to be amazing.
And then there's a long address after that. Yeah, it is really good. I think it probably came back on my radar, maybe yours, from the Sight and Sound.
It was number one on the site.
Yeah.
Chantal Akerman, right?
Yeah, Chantal Akerman from a couple years ago, which, I know that they changed that.
The Sight and Sound list is from a couple years ago. The movie is from like 1967 or something, but
yeah. It is worth your time, my friend.
She and it have both been on my radar for a long time. I've watched some of her shorts.
Okay.
Because they've been on Criterion, and I tend to use those as kind of a sample to see if a director who I haven't seen and should have is someone I should be checking out. So
yeah, it's certainly a name that I wish I knew of a little bit earlier than where I'm at now. But didn't know much about it. Didn't expect too much about it other than it's supposed to be really good. And yeah, guess what? It's really good. It's kind of like when you read a great novel that you've heard a lot about for a while.
When you finally read Lonesome Dove and you're like, oh shit, this is why everyone's talking about Lonesome Dove.
Yeah, warranted.
Yep.
Yeah.
I slept on this and I was an idiot.
Yeah. Lonesome Dove's certainly one of those sizable books that could kill a small animal, and yet one that you're that you hate when it's over.
Yeah. You hate when it's over, and you hate when you can't be reading it. I was actively angry at anything that was getting in the way of me reading Lonesome Dove when I read it a couple years ago.
Yeah. The type of book back in the day when I would bartend and wait tables, come home well past midnight and be like, that's the first thing I want to do.
Yeah. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Shout out Lonesome Dove. Shout out Larry. Uncle Larry.
Yep.
Great writer.
Have you read all four of them?
I've read two of them. I've read Streets of Laredo, which I think is the first one that comes. Yeah.
They're written out of sequence temporally.
Yes.
So it's Lonesome
chronology.
Dove is the third. Chronology-wise, Lonesome Dove is the first published and third in the series.
So I've read the fourth in the chronology.
And then Dead Man's Walk and Comanche Moon are the other two. I've read it in order of publication, 1, 2, and 3. in order of chronology within the universe, 3, 4, and 1.
Gotcha.
I think the third one and the first in sequence is really great and is interesting. He does a really interesting thing where both 3 and 4 are sort of these aging old rangers, sort of
Texas Rangers.
Yeah, trying to make do in this world that they're sort of
being phased out.
Yeah. And then the first one is they're young, dumb, and full of cum, and neither one of them know how to do anything. So then you jump from that end of the spectrum to then them before they know how to do much.
So what am I'm going into, if I'm done with Laredo, I would go to Comanche?
I can't remember if it's Comanche Moon or Dead Man's Walk.
Okay. Well, both of them are going to be read. But
yeah, because they're all amazing.
Yeah.
Comanche Moon is 2 and 4.
So I'm not reading that one next.
You're reading Dead Man's Walk.
Okay, now put all the Fletch books in order.
Good luck. There are like 10 more of them, and none of them are written in sequence.
Can you put the Lahane books in order?
I've read all of them.
I don't even remember where I stopped. I still have...
So I've read every Lahane novel except for Mystic River.
Okay. I'm after A Drink Before the War, or whatever that one's called.
Uh-huh.
And then the one right after that.
Prayer Before Rain, I believe, is
the
second one.
So then I need to the subsequent one is where I'm still.
Yeah, Sacred, I believe, is the third one.
Yep, that's the one I haven't read. Okay, I'll get to that. Now, Josh, do you read these books while watching movies and television?
Wait, at the same time? No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. No. Well, that's in my mind. That's the only way that you're able to do this.
Well, the Kenji Gennaro books read so fast. Sorry, it's Drink Before the War, Darkness Take My Hand, Sacred, Gone Baby Gone, Prayers for Rain, and then Moonlight Mile.
Okay, I still am right though that Sacred's where I need to read, where I need to pick up.
Yeah, you read Darkness Take My Hand, not Prayers for Rain.
Okay. All right. I still think that you probably have one eye on a book and one eye on the TV.
Nope.
Also, we should remind people at home that you don't sleep.
Yeah, I got boned last night by sleeping.
Yeah.
I woke up at 2:30. I went to bed. I was fucking really tired because I woke up Monday morning at 4:30.
Oh, okay.
Because I went to bed early.
Early meaning like 1?
11:30.
Yeah. Real early.
So 11:30, woke up at 4:30, but I woke up a bunch of times in the middle also.
Mm-hmm.
So I was awake at 4:30 until 9:30 last night, and then 9:30 I fall asleep, and I woke up at 2:30, and I watched... The fuck did I watch last night?
Oh boy.
I logged it so I can find
it was a Paris thing. Some kind of Paris.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blue something, Paris
Blues with Paul Newman, Joanne Woodward, Cindy Poitier, and Diane Carroll. All of them being couples at the time, so they got a trip to Paris out of it.
Oh, look at that.
It was okay. Martin Ritt directed it. He's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's not great. It's like a 3.5 star. You know, it's better than watching most things because it's got star power and it's in Paris in 1961.
And Newman is like gorgeous during this era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like one of my of that time. It's very minor for him. You know, like watch HUD, watch
Cool Hand.
Hustler, Cool Hand Luke. Like watch the other ones.
Yeah.
This isn't bad, but like it doesn't stick out. Anyway, so I watched that at fucking 2:30 in the morning. Finally fell back asleep when Kojak autoplayed after it, and I got almost all of the way through the Kojak pilot.
I mean, everybody is like listening, going like, "Yep, preaching to the choir." Like everyone's identifying with what you're talking about, of course. Like
Adam's probably watching Kojak right now.
Yeah, Adam needs to come back and weigh in on this.
Yeah, weigh in on Kojak.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah. Got stuff to do, man.
I slept through a Kojak.
You're probably going to sleep when you're dead. Although if there was a ghost friend of mine who would, I would say, kind of haunt me and talk movies, it'd probably be you.
Yeah, it's me probably.
You're going to be one of the spirits that cannot rest.
Yes. I guess we've got some pod biz to get
Pod
to.
biz.
Corrections and clarifications from the pair of Dreamscape episodes. I'm sure this bugged everyone. So I'm here to set the record straight and scream from the mountaintops that Jackie Earle Haley reprised his role from the Breaking Away film on the television show in the main cast. And John Ashton did as well, though he was only recurring on the show. Paul Dooley did not return.
Okay.
Which
All
Ted
right.
had speculated might have happened. It didn't. But everybody who watched the Breaking Away series was
Jackie Earle
incensed.
Haley being the, I can't remember his character name, the shortest one of the group.
Kelly Leak in
Bad News.
in Bad News Bears.
Yeah. And also showed up as Rorschach much later.
Yes, yeah. And in Little Children.
And in Little Children.
Oscar nominated in Little Children.
Make more movies, Todd Field.
When we were speculating on Dennis Quaid's career at the time leading up to Dreamscape, the Right Stuff came out 10 months before Dreamscape did. But Dreamscape went into principal photography in February of 1983 before any of his 3 releases, Tough Enough, Jaws 3D, and The Right Stuff hit the box office. It didn't open until August of 1984, 18 months after principal photography began.
Okay. That just means to me that they probably got him at a good price.
Yes. And then, as we discussed on the episode, it was independently financed, and then the studio bought it, but fucked around with it. Anyway, the Ron Perlman prehistoric film that I couldn't remember the name of and thought might have been Clan of the Cave Bear was Quest for Fire.
Of course. Everyone was yelling. Of course,
Yes.
when we brought that up.
Yep.
Everyone was like, those idiots.
Those morons who don't know Quest for Fire.
Yeah, I'm sure like my Aunt Leslie was just like, how do they not know this? Yeah. Shut up.
She isn't listening to this because she just stopped the episode and walked away.
Yeah, we're idiots.
This also, having just edited the Ted main event, we were talking like a lot of like tangential stuff, so there's a lot of this to go over.
Oh, God.
I've got two more.
Okay.
Michael Fassbender was 41 when he shot Dark Phoenix. The last time he appeared as Magneto. Plummer and Max von Sydow were both 53 when they shot Dreamscape. I believe a year older than Ted is now.
Great. I'm sure he'll be happy to get that correction.
He'll be heartened to know that he is Max von Sydow's age in Dreamscape.
As long as we keep reminding him that he is considerably older than George Wendt was.
Yes, way older.
Could have been George Wendt's father.
Yes.
Or could have been
father.
that character. Yeah.
Teen father.
Yeah.
And then we speculated about David Patrick Kelly's height, with Sean suspecting he was sub 5'9" and me guessing he was 5'5".
5'7"?
He's listed on the internet as 5'6".
Oh, okay.
So he's probably 5'5".
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, for feedback on the episode on Blue Sky, Gopher Balls said, loved the all smarm, no charm discourse and the history of the PG-13 rating. I remember how quickly the MPAA responded to the media outrage. Luckily for me, theaters did not actually enforce the age 13 restriction, treating it more like a guideline so as to not lose that key preteen demographic. And then said, also a caveman reference, Zub Zub indeed. Mobius 13 on Blue Sky said, this movie is so 80s it hurts. Horrible stereotypes, a dream sequence that would absolutely get you canceled if you put it in a movie today.
Yep.
The lead character playing a freaking saxophone, and even the mysterious agency driving a wood-paneled station wagon. This film had everything. Loved it. I responded to that. Really have to air quote playing with regards to the sax. And then he replied, true, let's just say like every great 80s movie, a saxophone is involved somehow, either in the soundtrack or the movie itself. Looking at you, Lost Boys. And I couldn't help but tell him then that we've got another movie brought to you by Big Sax coming up here very soon. Not this week, but very soon.
Yeah, and even when it doesn't show up in those capacities, it's still listed often as a crew member.
Yes, just saxophone.
Yeah, you will see it like you watch end credits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On Instagram, Chad Burns, our guest from Firstborn in season 1, said, looking forward to this one. This was a huge film for me as a kid. I added that it's streaming virtually everywhere if he wants to revisit The Summer of Capshaw. To which he responded, oh man, I was in love with Kate Capshaw, especially in this one. Then that nerd married her. Then Chad and I went off on Spielberg for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. As Chad and I are want to do.
Put her in a movie and then married her.
Yep.
Oh, also, by the way, a movie that he directed. Look up that poster.
Yep. And then look up the Dreamscape poster.
Yeah, because as Josh put it, that Quaid was Harrison Ford without the charm. You could argue that the Dreamscape poster just basically used the template for Raiders of the Lost Ark in a lot of ways.
It's inarguable.
Yeah.
It is that poster. It's shocking. When you sent that in the email to me and Ted, I was like, holy shit. And that was just the Raiders one. I bet the Temple of Doom one's even worse.
Yeah, the stuff about, like, let's put in, like, these ancillary characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, bookend this. It's so strange.
It's really jarring.
Like,
honestly.
it's almost like...
And the movie opened, like, months later.
Yeah, it's almost like a litigious thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now on Letterboxd, after saying he watched along with the pod, Los Cantu said, Los Cantu is a great follow also. You should be following him on Letterboxd if you aren't. But he said, a movie I totally slept on and never watched, but always knew the box cover and was interested. I think I might have caught a glimpse of Snake Man 2 back in the day, flipping the telly as a kid. Honestly, checked out after the main character has his heinous predator moment.
Oof.
Also, those dream sequences just made me want to watch a Ken Russell movie, see Altered States, or Lair of the White Worm. So he felt pretty much like we did.
Yeah, it's really hard to not, like, just have that movie be the bully ingredient on a pizza where even if you take it off, it's still gonna...
It casts such a pall over the whole thing.
Yeah. And again, like, you kind of have to just ride the movie till then to know, like, what he's capable of doing, his intentions, and the fallout. And of course, it's not even it's a slight, excoriation. I mean, it's a slap on the wrist.
Right. He's just let off the hook. It's fun. Anyway, I think that's all we've got right now.
Pod biz.
So, Tori, this one's going to be fun.
Yeah. This is for the deep cut fans out there.
And everyone should watch this.
Yeah. This is a movie that you need to watch just so that you can, just for bragging rights in some ways, that you've seen this.
This one, Mike Wiebe had written a fucking demo about this movie. It's awesome. It's on Canopy.
Yeah.
If you have Canopy, it's on there. I believe it's still on Prime also, but I'm not 100% sure.
You could argue that this is the Gene Dealman of science fiction.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they ran with, too, on promotional materials.
And I'm guessing that they're not enforcing copyright on this movie very heavily, and you can probably find it on YouTube even.
Yeah.
I'll have where it's available. I'll double check them all. I know it's on Canopy, but I'll double check them, and those will be in the show notes. You're going to want to watch this movie.
It is absolutely available.
On Prime?
It's available. Like, it's out there.
Yeah.
So, it is available. Like, somebody posted it 5 years ago on YouTube. So, it looks like not a pristine version of it.
It's not the new, because it just had a DVD release, right?
It's not 4K. It's maybe 1K, but yeah, the entire movie is available on YouTube really easily.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need 4K for this thing.
You need to watch this.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. It starts slowly too. Power through, it's worth it.
You get so much street cred after something like this.
Yeah, you're going to have so many friends after you watch this movie.
Yeah, you get to sit at cool tables.
So, without further ado, Tori. Welcome, everybody, to another teaser installment of the Unkind Rewind. I, of course, am Josh, joined by my co-host, Sean, who is unexpectedly recording from New York. Usually you would be, but you weren't supposed to be.
He's going to get out of town for a little bit, but I guess not. It's too hot to travel.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like 93 or something.
Okay, yeah, but 93 in New York is like 150.
Yeah. It's
fuck
it's
that
gross.
shit.
Some kid needs to crack open a fire hydrant or something in my apartment.
Yeah. This week, we're joined by special guest, Victoria Walsh. Tori, how goes it?
It's great. It's going great. Happy to be here. Excited to talk about a movie that I haven't really thought about or talked about much in a long time.
I don't want to speak for Sean, but I don't think I'd ever fucking heard of it. But we'll get into it in a second. Had you heard of it, Sean?
Mm-mm.
Okay, all right.
I don't know if anybody's talking about it. I mean,
No.
besides us.
Yeah, this is probably the only podcast that's ever recorded about it.
It's going to be really, really easy to find this podcast by searching the movie name.
Yes. So, Tori, for the audience members who may not know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about myself. Okay. I am a person in my mid-30s. I live in Colorado. I work as a systems engineer right now. I used to have a radio show on ESPN Kansas City for a relatively brief period of time, considering the grand scheme of all the things I've done in my life. But yeah, spent most of my 20s in Kansas City, was pretty involved with the Royals Review community, Royals Twitter family, that whole thing. I would say I definitely earned my stripes in Royals fandom during that 2010 to 2015 era, and now it's coming back around, so it's a fun time to be a Royals fan again. I've had Chiefs season tickets since like 2010, I think. So yeah, long time Kansas City sports fan, long time Kansas City community nuisance, I guess you could say, and now being a nuisance to you guys.
So were you there in 2015?
I was there in 2015 at Game 1, actually. Yeah, the extra innings, Alex Gordon, inside the park home run, all that stuff. It was awesome.
I wonder if there were people who left, like, either the community or left being a fan for that pivotal year, and then only to be like, fuck.
I'm sure that there were, right? I mean,
somebody.
In fact, I can say even the people that I watched the playoffs with in 2014, a lot of them were kind of like out of the picture in 2015. Kind of like with the team too, right? Like James Shields, Billy Butler, like some of the critical pieces of that team.
Yeah.
Kind of, nowhere to be found in the team that actually won the series, which honestly kind of is a bummer to me. Like, yeah, it was great to win in 2015, sort of. This is not the point of this podcast at all, but I could talk for a long time about my feelings about Dayton Moore and all that stuff. But that 2014 team is special, and I wish they would have won, but
same. 2015 was somehow less.
Yeah.
Like, I have a much warmer place in my heart for the 2014 team that lost, that didn't win the World Series.
Would you rather have not won it in 2015 and remain?
No.
All right. Again,
no.
Not the point of this podcast, but I will say, yes.
Okay.
I would rather
Jesus.
not have won in 2015.
Wow. That's a bold statement. All right, well, redirect to some royal links, the show notes.
Yeah. So, I guess take us back to your youth before we sort of talk about what the movie is. What was your childhood like when you were watching the movie that we're about to watch?
Holy shit. Okay. So we were at the orphanage, and I was really hoping to get adopted. Things were just looking really, really bleak, and no.
I don't know you, so I was like, wow, okay.
Jesus. Orphanage, holy shit.
Okay.
I was a latchkey kid, right? So,
sure.
Single mom, parents divorced when I was like 10 years old. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My younger sister's 2 years younger. My younger brother is 7 years younger. So we all were kind of looking after each other. That all went down when I was like 10, maybe 11 years old. Grandma lived next door. But for the most part, my mom was an accountant, CPA. During tax season, that meant late nights, right? So spent a lot of time fending for myself. Not to say that that's like we had like a broken home or anything. I mean, it was what it was.
It was the 80s. Or 90s, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't the only one that I knew that was doing that either, right? So I don't know. It didn't seem that strange to me at the time, and it doesn't feel strange to me now, but, like, in retrospect, like, you can look at things differently, right?
Sure.
But we had all of the, like, HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, all those, like, movie channels and shit, because, like, you got to keep your kids entertained when there's nothing else for them to do, right? Like, we lived far away from all my friends. We lived far away from the school district. It's a private school. So we were self-contained. In essence. Mm-hmm. And so especially like on the weekends, that meant that I would usually just pour myself like a big ass fucking mug of root beer and get my blanket, my pillow, and snuggle up on the couch and start looking for whatever movies were on for that weekend, right? And so this is actually how I came across a lot of movies that have became like big, seminal, like formative monoliths of cultural import in my mind, right?
Sure.
But what's really interesting about that is that a lot of those movies that I like deliberately selected in this process, you know how it is when you're a kid, right? Like you're playing your Game Boy or something, right? Because I have a Game Boy Advance, right? And I was playing like Advance Wars or Pokemon or Castlevania or something, right? So you put on a movie, the movie's going on, time goes by, you're doing this thing, you fall asleep, you wake up, some other movie's on now, right? Sometimes it's porn. And
you had Cinemax,
you roll with it, right? But a lot of the time, if you're watching one of the not primary HBO channels, if you're watching like HBO Family or like Cinemax Horror or whatever their whatever their horror channel was, right? They'll just show weird fucking movies that night.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly how I came across this movie. So I was watching some other like teen rom-com movie on like HBO Zone, I think it was.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if that's a channel anymore, but it was kind of their like Outer Limits type channel, but they also on the weekends would show like really like bottom of the barrel, lowest common denominator, like American Pie type shit.
Sure.
Which for, 14-year-old was like, oh yeah, I'm going to watch this stuff. So I wake up in the middle of the night and there's a fucking movie on TV about ants. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. And the quirk that I really liked about this HBO Zone and HBO TV situation is that at that time, I don't know if this is still the case, but at that time, they had the East Coast and the West Coast feeds, right? So I would always watch the East Coast feeds, right? Because that's what, when you're in Central Time, like everything is meant to be adjusted, right? But that means that if you miss something on the East Coast feed, 3 hours later, it's on the West Coast feed. Yeah. So I catch like the back like 30 minutes of this movie, and I'm hitting the guide. I'm just like, okay, I gotta know what the fuck this is about, because this is some of the craziest shit that I have ever seen. Like my young brain, that is like at that point really just starting to get into like the X-Files and Alien and some of the classic like. Day the Earth Stood Still, Invasion of Body Snatcher, like kind of the alien invasion, like Planet of the Apes, like the Charlton Heston stuff, like back then, right? Like it had a lot of that kind of. Zack Snyder wasn't a thing yet.
Sure.
But it had that sense of being like a dystopian film that prized imagery and like the vividness and the evocativeness of the imagery in the film. Almost more than the actual content of the film, which now is pretty much how every film is made. But at the time, it struck me as being like, wow, this is a movie that almost exists like for the sake of itself. Like this is really interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. It almost feels like there was a DJ kind of that came on to some of these premium cable stations.
Absolutely.
Especially with HBO Zone specifically. Yeah. HBO Zone was like the good one.
Got to play what they wanted.
Yeah. I saw so many great movies on it. Like Solaris is one of my favorite movies, which I also first saw on HBO Zone. Vanilla Sky, I believe I saw on HBO Zone.
Yeah.
Well, I believe Josh and I both saw Shakma pretty goddamn late at night, too.
We sure did.
And if you don't know about Shakma, it is worth it.
What is that?
It's about it's a baboon, right? Or is it a gibbon?
It's a killer baboon
What?
In a med school over the course of a night where they're all trapped in a building. Mm-hmm. And it stars Roddy McDowall and the guy who I can't remember from Blue Lagoon.
Christopher Atkins,
yeah. It's insane because they mix like live baboon footage, like that stuff that they have this. They have a baboon in heat running around this medical, hospital.
And this
it's
was
like
right
B-roll.
after Monkey
it's like,
Shines,
it's like actually
I think.
shot on the set, or it's like
Yes.
B-roll, but they
Yes.
just like cut
Yes.
in.
Yeah. No. This is basically I think that it came out right after Monkey Shines, but like it was meant to capitalize on the Monkey Shines boom.
They also built a like animatronic head that they could get for close-ups, but
Yeah.
they're experimenting with like the medulla oblongata
Mm-hmm.
and violence in primates and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. And this thing they think is dead.
You remember this way too well. I
well,
have the
No,
vaguest
this is how I
recollection
am
of
too,
this
man.
movie.
It's like once you like unlock the
Mhm.
door, like open the door, then it's like, oh right.
To
I
be
remember all this
fair,
stuff.
I did track this movie down.
Okay.
I made my beloved Portland video store Movie Madness secure a copy of this. And it's more batshit than I can really get into right now. But yeah, it seems that like a lot of these movies that you're talking about that I've never heard of occurred really only between the hours of like midnight and 4.
Yes, for
yeah,
sure.
for sure. It was like the overnight block.
Yeah.
100%.
So I guess we should say what the movie is. For next week, we will be watching Phase 4, which
Phase
again,
1V.
Yeah, Phase
1V, Phase IV.
IV, yeah.
Phase
Uh-huh.
IV. Yep.
Yes. Now, Sean, you also had
No idea. I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Never-
thought there must have
never
been a
heard
typo. I was like,
Right.
was it Platoon? Like I don't. Like reading. I was like,
Yeah.
maybe that's just some code, some like Kansas City Royal bullshit that they're talking about. I don't know. What's
No,
Phase
no.
4?
So what's funny is I was telling my brother about this, that I just like that you guys asked me to do this, and I do the whole process, and I was like, yeah, I put this movie on the list, Phase 4, and he immediately was like the Marvel Phase 4,
Yeah.
even though I had told him the premise of the podcast, so it obviously couldn't be Marvel Phase 4.
Sure.
He was still just like, but what the fuck is Phase 4? Like that's not a thing. Like what are you talking about?
Well, and it's funny when there's an age gap between siblings. Like
Mm-hmm.
my brother is 5 years younger, and there are certain movies that like, because we did test episodes with him, or we did a test episode with him, and just to like work out the kinks of the like concept of the show, and his list was like mostly movies that I never fucking saw, and I'm the older one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like
It's funny how that happens, though. Like, so I would say there's a lot of movies that I now love that are
Mhm.
like some of my favorite movies that I only know exist because my younger brother recommended them to me.
sure,
And that 7-year age, it's weird. Yeah, like
yeah,
I feel like there's also a sense of like you want to like impress your siblings, right? So like
Mhm.
you only recommend like the best of the best shit, right? It's like
Right.
the shit that you know is gonna be like, oh my god, like this movie's fucking great. Like how? Oh my god.
hmm
So yeah, everything that he's ever recommended me is a fucking banger.
nice.
This is not one of those movies, and in fact, I don't know that I've ever recommended this movie to anyone because the truth is, it's not that good.
But that's probably what's going to be awesome about it.
I think it kind of works better for this, is because
Sure,
like this is a
absolutely.
movie. It's not a terrible movie by any means,
Mhm.
but it's not a movie that you're gonna watch it and be like, "Oh my god, how have I not seen this cinematic masterpiece? My
Right.
whole life has changed now." Like,
As we kind of talk about on the show, if Josh and I haven't heard of it, like there's probably a reason why.
Yeah,
Maybe it's quality, maybe it's, like we found with, was it Night of the Creeps? There's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that hurt
Right.
that movie's chances of being seen.
studio buries it, or yeah,
Yeah, we will absolutely get into it, but I mean, Phase 4 just sounded like an Atari game or like something on Genesis that I, maybe
Mhm.
rented once or twice and tried to beat and it was too hard. But I've never heard of it. I can't imagine there's Phase 1, 2, 3 that I need to catch up on.
no. So
Okay.
it's in the movie, but essentially the movie itself is divided into chapters.
Okay.
And so the beginning of the movie is Phase 1.
okay.
And the movie itself is called Phase 4.
Okay, so here, memory can be a tricky thing. You obviously haven't seen this in ages.
For a super long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
so
I actually was like, I don't know if I'm gonna have to go like buy it on Amazon or something because I thought I had it on DVD.
It's
but I
actually
can't find the
readily
DVD
available.
anywhere. So
it's
yeah.
at least
I
right
did
now
look it
it's
up last
streaming.
night. I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it's on Amazon. Like I can
Yeah.
find it for sure. So
It's playing tonight at 2:19 in the morning.
on HBO Zone.
Yeah. But
Times the flat circle.
having not seen this in ages, briefly describe what you think the plot of Phase 4 is.
Okay, all right. my recollection of this movie, the plot, is that there is some kind of incident. It's either like a natural phenomenon, like a lightning storm or something like that, or some kind of like alien interaction with a colony of ants.
Okay.
And that causes this colony of ants to become like the superlative ant life form on planet Earth. And they kind of become like the predominant ant colony, and these two researchers are sent to, I believe this happens in Arizona, is where it happens. Or maybe New Mexico, somewhere in like the Southwest desert area. These two researchers are sent down to where there's this fucking like massive monolith ant colony situation happening. And they have this research station in the desert where they set up to like study the ants and like fight the ants and like see what's going on with that. So phase 1 is like the ants evolve, right? Phase 2 is like these guys are sent in to study the ants and see what's going on. Phase 3 is they fight the ants. So essentially like they realize the ants have become sentient. The ants are like out to fucking get us, and we have to fucking like fight back. So they have these like tools and countermeasures that it's like an Andromeda strain situation, right?
Okay.
Like only instead of like a disease, it's ants.
Okay.
And so they go full Andromeda strain protocol. There's a girl involved that reminds me of the girl that plays Juliet in the old Romeo and Juliet.
The Zeffirelli one?
Yeah. Totally not relevant, actually, to anything that's going on. But there's a girl that shows up, and she gets, like, kidnapped by the ants or, like, brainwashed or something. And then they end up becoming overwhelmed. They lose the fight against the ants. They all get captured by the ants. And then the end of the movie is them all being, like, brainwashed by the ants and, like, awaiting their orders because the ants have won and, like, the world's fucked.
Awesome.
And these are not super-sized ants from, like, the old 1950s movie.
No, they are for sure, like, ants. Like, regular fucking ants.
And that was Olivia Hussey, by the way.
Yeah, Olivia Hussey. I was going to say Olivia, but I was like, I know it's Juliet.
Yeah.
But it's like, so, yeah, Olivia.
If you said Juliet, we would get it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm glad you looked it up because I was irritated that I couldn't think of it.
The great Olivia
I also
Hussey.
actually was. And I even thought, like, Olivia, I couldn't get the last part. Did you guys know there's a thing called super recognizers, by the way? This is totally irrelevant to everything.
No.
So, there's Harvard, I think it was Harvard, did a study on essentially a phenomenon that had been reported where, like, people can, like, see a face or see a scene or something, like, one time and just, like, recall it.
Okay.
With, like, unprecedented precision, right? And they did a study on a group of people, and it turns out this is actually a real thing. So, like, essentially, like, 1 in 10 people has this thing called, like, super recognition, where they can see a scene or recall something just, like, every time. It's, like, perfectly.
Okay.
And I feel like a lot of us in this community have that.
So
weirdos?
a perfectly,
weirdos?
like a photographic memory on steroids.
But it's not photographic, right? It's just, like, it's only in the sense of, like, you can recall faces and like scenes and moments and things, and like pair them with like a name or like a like a sound or like a something, right? It's like a pattern matching situation, right? Which I guess is kind of what eidetic memory is, but I feel like it's more selective than that.
Yeah, right. So you think you're about 14 when you saw this?
Yeah, I would say about 14.
Okay.
And since?
I don't think that I have watched it since. I watched it a bunch at that time.
Because it was in the rotation on HBO Zone or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. So I saw it a few more times at that time, and then I did buy it on DVD when I got a driver's license a couple of years later. Okay. But I don't think I ever actually watched it. I just had it on the shelf.
That's awesome. So what was it about Phase 4 that you think appealed to your younger self?
I was a big fucking nerd. And I'm still a big fucking nerd, right? Like, truly, to me, it was... I think I touched it in the synopsis, but, like, I loved that it was kind of this, like, hyper-stylized Andromeda Strain type thing. I hadn't seen the movie The Andromeda Strain at that time either, but I'd read the book. I'd read the Michael Crichton book, and it gave me those same vibes of,
I've only read the book.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I don't think you're missing out on anything. Like, because they made, like, a mini-series about it, too, which also sucks. But the book's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I had recently read the book, and I was kind of just on that wavelength of, you know, science versus... not necessarily, like, nature, but, like, science as, like, we're gonna fucking, like, in a crisis situation, it's all or nothing, like, us against the world, and I don't know,
So were you a nerd in both kind of a science fiction aspect, but also kind of like modern science and technology aspect? Or where did you kind of veer there? Both?
Yeah, I would say. I mean,
Okay.
I work as a systems engineer now, so
But science fiction has had a hook on you as well?
yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So I committed to reading like 50 books this year, and 10 of those books were The Expanse. I read the Silo series. That was 3 more books, and then I found out that dude wrote a collection of short stories, so I read that also.
Okay.
So yes, I would say yes. I'm still like deeply invested in science fiction. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it started before Phase 4? It wasn't?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So it's always kind of been with you, and then Phase 4 just kind of
I grew up. Yeah, I grew up. My mom loved Star Trek: Next Generation, and she
Okay.
loved Star Wars. And my dad, as far as I know, hates everything.
Okay.
So she counteracted that where she could, and one of the ways in which she did that was Star Wars, Star Trek, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So when you're jostled awake to ants and gamma rays or whatever, this is like, oh yeah, like this is
The inclination's not to change the channel.
I didn't even think about changing the channel. I was just
Okay.
like, what is this?
checking
I'm
those boxes.
Into it. I am
Okay.
into this shit, whatever it is. Yes,
All right.
absolutely. 100%.
I feel like this is going to be the source footage for that fucking terrible MacGyver episode, Trumbo's Army. Like, I feel like
Well,
that's
okay,
all going
so-
to be used from this.
I didn't know this when I watched the movie, but what I pull when it has the TV guide, right? Like the old cable box TV guide
Yeah,
has
yeah.
like a description of the movie, right? So the description of the movie is like Phase 4, 1974, like 3 out of 4 stars or something, not rated, ants take over the world or whatever the description is, right? But it also had a blurb about Saul Bass being the director.
Yeah, which
And
is
I
very
knew
weird
Saul
to me.
Bass for
Yeah.
being like the prolific music video
Mhm.
guy, right? Which is why
Yeah.
in my mind, like I always have kind of like tied it back like between him and Zack Snyder, who Zack Snyder also was like a big music video guy before he started making terrible movies. And Phase 4 didn't do super well, so this was Saul Bass's only movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in that way it's kind of it's really interesting as a prism into the like there's another Japanese movie called Cashern that I really like that I also watched around the same time.
Okay.
That also was directed by a dude who was predominantly known for making music videos. And
Okay.
it definitely shows in the movie
Yeah.
that the whole movie is just like a collection of like really cool iconography that doesn't really add up to anything.
Because Saul
Yeah.
Bass did the intros for a bunch of the Hitchcock movies.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yep.
Not known
Yep, the
as a
intro
director.
Master, the intro master.
Yeah.
Tori,
Yeah.
when I looked up Phase 4 and I saw that it was directed by Saul Bass, I did a coffee spit take, and I wasn't even drinking coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
That's how weird
truly, it's
seeing
a feature
that
film,
name.
but from a guy that is like really, really well known for doing everything but feature films.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be, I mean, you can't even, because titles as sequences today are just such a thing of the past.
It's an afterthought.
Yeah.
Right? And to the point where it's weird, where if you watch like the early aughts, like Spider-Man or like the
Mhm.
X-Men, right? They have those like really over elaborate like CGI title sequences, and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
hmm And now most of that is reserved for television. Like, I think
Yeah.
TV
Yeah.
is like the last.
Yeah, the last bastion.
You might see it in a David Fincher movie, but that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he came from videos.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said
You
about
carry
that.
it with you.
We just talked about a director who came from a music video background in
Hiding out, yeah.
hiding out. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
When you tell them, hey, you don't have to tell a whole story in 5 minutes, you have 90 to 120, and they fucking barf. Or, I mean, figuratively, in their work.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Right.
So what memories do you have that stick out most about Phase 4? This could range from what your personal experiences were with a movie or hanging out with a specific friend group or anything that kind of sticks out to you.
So the thing is, this is not a movie that I think I've ever talked about to anyone.
Like, because of shame or...
No, it just was because it was just like it wasn't a movie that I like. It blew me away or changed my life or anything. It wasn't that I was like ashamed of it or anything like that. It was just like I saw it, I thought it was really cool. I watched it a few more times, and it's always kind of stuck with me. But I've never just been like, okay, guys, like let's let's hash it out. Phase 4,
Sure.
best movie ever made, or what?
Because those people don't
Look,
exist.
motherfuckers, you're all going to watch the Ant movie.
Right. I've never wanted to be that person who's like, everyone, I saw this movie, you all have to watch it. That's your assignment. When we see each other next time, we're going to talk about it. There'll be questions. There'll be pop quiz. Which I guess isn't a pop quiz if I tell you that it's happening, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you want to sit around the lunch table and talk about movies that, your peers have seen. You want to talk Ghostbusters and
a movie that was already 30 years old.
Right.
About alien mind control ants.
Yeah.
That I'm pretty sure, like, the entire cast of it was like 4 people. It mostly takes place in the desert.
But
Like,
thousands of ants, I bet.
There's so many ants. Yeah, it's pretty much all ants.
And teenagers aren't, like, running to find this thing when you mention the name Saul Bass either.
Yep, exactly.
Holy shit! Saul Bass!
It was only after the fact that I even realized, like, this is kind of a cool thing that I just, like, happened to watch, right?
I mean, that piqued my interest, but I'm a fucking weirdo. And I'm pretty sure it piqued Sean's interest, too. But because Sean's also a fucking weirdo.
I mean, interest is a strong word.
Well, and that's the thing, right? You've had time to develop that, like, weirdness, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you see this on TV as a 14-year-old, like, Saul Bass isn't going to mean anything. Probably. It's just like, what? This weird movie about ants. What's going on?
It piqued my morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
Let's say.
So, what expectations do you have for your return to Phase 4?
Dude, I'm going to say I'm actually excited for this because my main, like, memories in terms of, like, the phantasma, like, mental image of the movie in my mind is that I remember them essentially, like, going to war with these ants in this, like, research facility that they have. And then the ants, like, figure out how they're doing, like, how they're killing them and, like, outsmart them, right? Like, and because they're ants, their version of, like, doing that is, like, we're going to sacrifice, like, 10,000 ants to overload this fucking, like, machine that you built. And then you're going to be goat fucked because you're in the middle of the desert and we have, like, 1 million more ants, right?
10,000 ants
like,
is nothing for them.
Exactly. It's just that there's this sense of just, like, overwhelming momentum that builds on the side of the ants to the point where, like, the end of the movie is them just, like, I guess we surrender because, like...
Yeah.
There's, like, ants win, right? It's such a weird concept, but there's the sense of, like, inevitability that builds throughout the film is just, like, I don't know, it's palpable, and I'm looking forward to re-experiencing that.
I mean...
Keep that optimism, goddammit.
Yeah. I'm jazzed for this, but I'm into finding these weird fucking movies that no one's ever seen. Like, that's... Mm-hmm. I mean, not no one, but very few people have seen.
I'm excited to see it. I mean, hell, this is new territory. Again, like, can you think of, have we had a movie, Josh, where neither of us have heard of it?
I don't think I'd heard of Brainstorm. I knew what it was once I looked into it, but I don't think I'd heard the name ever. We
knew that there was a project that Walken and Natalie Wood were working on, but which eventually turned out to be Brainstorm. A very weird title for that too. But yeah, this is but this is very rare territory, let's say.
Mm-hmm. I've never heard of Night of the Creeps, actually.
Yeah. I would say, though, for the majority of things we've done,
it's rare that I haven't heard of it.
There's a flicker of like recognition. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm excited to cross it off the list, even though I didn't know it was on the list.
That's kind of the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
Like that's actually how it felt like for me too. Is like this movie I totally never would have known existed had I not just like happened to see it one night.
Sure.
But now that I do, and that now that I did, it's like I was like, had I found out about it some other way, I would have been maniacally focused on like I have to see this movie.
Sure.
And instead, that's how I found out about the movie. So it actually worked out.
Well, Tori, I'm looking forward to this
for sure.
Oh, where can everyone find you?
Oh, I'm Mightie Minx on Twitter. MIGHTIEMINX. Mightie Minx. I think that's also me on Instagram. I think that's pretty much it.
Right on.
You can find Tori on fucking Deep Space Nine over there.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. I also do hang out at Quirks all the time.
Yes.
You can find me at Quirks.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Hence her background.
Usually at the demo table.
Yeah. That's only going to play to the YouTube audience. But, but still, it'll play. Well, Tori, thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to sitting down and watching this and seeing how it plays to your memories.
Yeah, God, I hope it's not as bad as I'm afraid it might be. So we'll see.
Blow my mind, Phase 4.
Well, thank you for joining us, Tori.
Thanks,
yeah,
Tori.
for sure. I'll see you guys on the other side when we're all ant slaves.
Indeed.
Can't wait.
You've just listened to another installment of the Unkind Rewind podcast, Mining and potentially ruining your childhood for content, one film at a time. Unkind Rewind is a Munchcast production and can be ingested wherever you listen to podcasts and on the Unkind Rewind YouTube channel. Music for this and every other episode of Unkind Rewind was composed by Divorcio Suave. Rate, review, like, and subscribe to Unkind Rewind on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and Good Pods. Links to all our social media accounts are in our show notes, but you'll find us as at Unkind Rewind Pod on nearly every social media platform, all of which are available at our website, unkindrewind.com. If you have a question, concern, complaint, or feedback, you can email the podcast at unkindrewindpod@gmail.com or call into our call-in line, area code 507-479-6440, and leave a message that can be played on air. Fans should join the Munchcast Discord to discuss this or any other episode of the Unkind Rewind with like-minded people. This dialogue may just make it into a future episode of the pod. The Unkind Rewind Patreon will be coming soon, so start squirreling that pocket change away. Thank you for listening to another Unkind Rewind.